Hi, my name's Melissa. I'm doing my community project presentation. And just to give a little background, I'm a float nurse in multiple clinics. One of the clinics I float to is a chronic anticoagulation clinic. So all the patients at that clinic are on warfarin, and we help manage their INRs. So that's kind of where this started. So the clinic that I work in is in Sandy, Utah. Sandy is located in the northeastern part of the state, so it's just south of Salt Lake City, and it's right in front of the Wasatch Mountains, the Wasatch Front of the Rocky Mountains. It's kind of up on the bench, so it does get a lot of snow, and it's a high elevation. The elevation is 4,450 feet. And it's pretty much covered in suburbs, and it's very much urbanized at this point. So demographics, according to the 2010 census report, there are 87,461 people living in Sandy. Of course, this has probably changed, but that's the most recent report that I could find. 90% are Caucasian, 7.4% are Hispanic, 0.5% are Native American, 3% are Asian, 0.7% are Black, and 0.6% are Islanders, and then 2.6% are other. Of course, this has probably changed some since 2010, but this should be a pretty good estimate of what it is like at this time. And there are approximately 28,296 households and 22,553 families living in Sandy. So economics, the average income per household is $76,904, and the population below the poverty line is currently at 7.8%, and then 11% of children and 4.3% of people over 65 years old of the total population were living below the poverty line. Alright, so just in general, some things to note about Sandy. It is a very growing area. It's pretty much growing by the building of townhomes and apartments. There aren't a ton of new homes going up. There are some, but most of the area, there aren't new homes going up. It's older homes that are being remodeled. But there is growth in, as I said, the townhomes and the apartments. One of the biggest problems that I was able to find is that the city is having trouble keeping up with the amount of traffic. So there's always a lot of construction going on, trying to widen roads and create more lanes so that traffic isn't horrible getting to and from Sandy and around Sandy once you're in Sandy. Recreation, we're in Sandy, we're very lucky. We are so close to the mountains. There's a ton to do, summer and winter. So there's a lot of hiking, biking, snow, like skiing, snowboarding, snowmobiling, snowshoeing. Sandy is also home to the Real Salt Lake soccer team, which is very fun, and they play throughout the summer and into the fall. And then there's also lots of parks and trails and camping opportunities for everyone. So it's a very outdoorsy place, and there's a lot of options for people who want to get out and do stuff. And then this is some basic information about the government of Sandy and of Utah. So the mayor currently is Kurt Bradburn. He's relatively new. I believe he was elected to office last year. And then a deputy mayor, Evelyn Everton, police chief William O'Neill, city judge Paul C. Farr, the governor currently of Utah is Gary Herbert, with the lieutenant governor of Spencer Cox. Utah's attorney general is Sean Reyes, and then the two senators that we currently have are Mike Lee and Mitt Romney. Schools, so there are 5 high schools. One that is relatively new was built in the last 5 years, but the other ones have been around for a little while. 6 middle schools, 18 elementary schools, 1 technical school, and it's actually a part of another tech school that's a little bit further west, but they both work together. C-Tech just happens to be the one in Utah, or in Sandy, I mean. And then there's 1 alternative high school, and it's called South Point. So one of the big problems that I found with Sandy, with the Sandy community, is that cerebrovascular disease is the 3rd leading cause of death in Sandy, Utah. This is a big problem, and some of it is unavoidable, but I've been noticing, and through research I've seen that a lot of patients could avoid these accidents and the cerebrovascular accidents if they were, if their warfarin was being managed correctly. So some are avoidable, so that's kind of what I focused on. So nursing diagnoses. So the prevalence of emergency room visits in Utah relating to preventable blood clots or bleeding as evidenced by non-compliance with taking warfarin. So when warfarin is taken correctly and the INR is being managed often and correctly as well, there doesn't seem to be a big problem with patients having to go to the emergency room. Unfortunately, when there is non-compliance, whether the patients are meaning to be non-compliant, some are, but some aren't meaning to be, they just happen to be, then those emergency room visits go up, and then we also see an increase in patients having long hospital stays. So after going to the emergency room, then they are put inpatient and they have to stay for a long time, which is very unfortunate. And then sometimes there are even death can happen if related to the misuse of warfarin. So Healthy People 2020 objectives. The goal is to help patients currently on warfarin to manage their diet and medications to help prevent further clots and ER visits. So this is tertiary prevention. This is because they've already had the blood clot. That's already happened. It's not prevention. They've had it already. And we're trying to prevent further problems from happening. So that falls under tertiary prevention. The other goal is to increase patient satisfaction as they won't have to come into the clinic as often or to the ER. So patients whose INRs fall out of the range where they're supposed to be, they have to come to the clinic all the time and get it checked again. And then, of course, if they're having any kind of a clot or bleeding issue, then they just have to go to the emergency room, which really decreases patient satisfaction. So for objectives, the outcome I was hoping for by doing this project, which I'll kind of discuss, I was hoping by December 31st, 2020, so a year from now basically, as a result of using calendars to help track warfarin, Sandy patients taking warfarin will be able to manage their medications and take the correct dose of warfarin every day. And then the impact could be that, and hopefully will be, that by December 31st, 2020, 50% of patients on warfarin will not be seen in the ER for blood clot or bleeding related issues at all. So of course, if they're on warfarin, it might be unavoidable. Even if it's being correctly managed, it's a dangerous medication, and they may still end up in the emergency room, but hoping to keep at least 50% of patients out would be wonderful. So there are some resources to patients currently. I found this wonderful handout on utahhealthcare.edu, and it has some information about it. And then, of course, the clinic that I currently work at, the Altiview Chronic Anticoagulation Clinic, we have a ton of resources we hand out to patients, and we're also a resource for them to call anytime that they have questions or concerns. And then the American Heart Association is also a wonderful resource for patients. So the interventions that I helped roll out for this I came up with a calendar for patients, especially ones that struggle to remember to take their medication and to keep track of their appointments, as well as keeping track of what they eat. So patients on warfarin have to be really careful about their vitamin E, vitamin K intake. Vitamin K is basically an antidote to warfarin. So if they on one day decide to eat a really big green salad, which has a lot of vitamin K, that could counteract their warfarin, and then they could have a problem with the clot. So the intake of vitamin K isn't a problem as long as it's consistent. So this calendar will help them make sure they're not eating too much vitamin K on random days and that it's more dispersed throughout the week, and it's the same week to week. So this calendar, I wanted a spot for them to, so that the nurse was able to write in what the correct dose of warfarin that they're taking for that specific day of that month, and then a spot for them to sign off that they took that specific dose. I also wanted them to have information on how to contact the Altiview Chronic Anticoagulation Clinic. So if they had any questions, they could give us a call. There's also a spot for where they put their next appointment, and then as well as the correct dose, as I kind of stated above. And then so with this, I trained the other, the Chronic Anticoagulation Clinic is short as CAC. So I trained all the CAC nurses on how to use the calendar. So I explained where the patients are supposed to sign off, and I made a calendar for every day of the month for the next full year, and then I have a PDF that I gave to the nurses so they can make new ones if I'm not here anymore for the following months. So yeah, I trained the nurses on how to use it and how to adjust it, and how to train the patients. And then I also made sure that the nurses knew how to follow up with patients and verify that they were taking their warfarin correctly. So the idea is that the calendar goes home with the patient, and then they sign off every day, and then at their next appointment they bring the calendar back in, and the nurse is able to see exactly when they took it, any questions that they wrote down, what their vitamin K intake was, and anything else that they were needing to keep track of. So this is, I apologize, it's not a great picture of it, but unfortunately I was having a hard time uploading a picture. So up in the in the left-hand corner is the information to get a hold of the CAC clinic for patients. The left-hand corner, we put their primary care provider, the strength of pill that they have, because a lot of them take half doses of pills on certain days, or multiple pills of warfarin, so then they know exactly what the strength is per pill, and then when their next appointment is. So those three things are very important for them to know, and they're right at the top. And then on every single day of the month, there's a spot right next to the word pills where the nurse can write in what dose, how many pills the patient is supposed to take. So every Tuesday, here, I'll show you. If every Tuesday they're supposed to take 2.5 pills, then they could write it in on every Tuesday. If every Wednesday they're supposed to take 3 pills, and then Thursday and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday they only take 2, then we can write those in. So then all the patient has to do is pull up, so this was the one that we used for October, so they can pull up the October calendar, go, okay, today is the 9th, I am taking 3 pills today. And so then they go ahead and initial in the box, and that shows that they took it that day and they took this correct dose. So they saw the dose, took the pills, and signed it. And then there's also space in here for them to write their vitamin K intake for the day. And then on this side, I left some space for them to write if they missed any doses. Sometimes they have to miss because they're having a procedure for something else. Sometimes they forget, but they can write in here any missed doses that they know of, any changes in diet, if they need a little more space to write those, any new health problems that came up, And then any questions for the CAC clinic. This is also a space where they can write new medications that they've started, especially something like an antibiotic. Those can change how the warfarin works. So anyways, that's kind of the idea behind that. And so far it's been going really well. So far they've used it for the last, so we're going on the third month here, and patients have already said how much of a difference it's been making. They feel a lot less frustrated about trying to remember or trying to find the right sheet that the physician gave them this time or whatever. They just put this calendar up on their fridge and they sign it off every single day that they took the correct amount. And then the nurses in turn have also mentioned that it's been so helpful that they know that the patient is taking the correct amount. So this has only been going for a few months, but so far it's been working really well. And we've heard some really good feedback. And just as this slide says, patients on warfarin have already been through enough. They have had a clot of some kind to be put on warfarin, and now they are told they have to come in all the time to monitor their INR levels. This is one of the biggest things that I hear as a frustration to these patients, is that they're frustrated they have to come in all the time to get this checked. And I don't blame them. It's not fun to come in all the time to get their INR checked. But it's also a safety issue, and we want to keep our patients safe. So anyways, this calendar will help patients keep track of their warfarin dose, stay out of the ER in the hospital as much as possible, and increase satisfaction, as they won't need to come into the CAC clinic all of the time. If their INRs are within a certain range, they can come in every 12 weeks, which is so much better than every other week. And then those are my references. I had a really awesome time working on this project, and it's been really cool to see how much of a difference it's made in a lot of patients' lives. And I look forward to hearing and seeing the results as this keeps working. So anyways, thank you.